I'm very happy to have Professor Anastasios Xepapadeas on today's episode of Expert Views. Anastasios, or Tassos as everybody calls him, is currently Professor of Economics at the Department of Economics of the University of Bologna and Professor Emeritus at the Department of International and European Economic Studies of Athens University. He is an elected international member of the US National Academy of Science, past president of the European Association of Environmental and Resource Economics, and past chair of the board of directors of the Beijer Institute of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. He has published more than 150 scientific articles and has participated as coordinator or lead researcher in more than 35 funded research programs. His current research interests include spatial-temporal analysis in economics, economics of climate change, uncertainty, and many others. Tassos, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Ingmar. Very glad to be here with you and talking about environmental economics.
Well, thank you really to be here, Tassos.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know the experts' views, they work a bit like a snowball fight.
Okay.
I throw a question at you, and you throw the first answer that gets into your mind back at me. Are you ready for this?
Sure. Shoot the question.
Could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Yes. Well, I'm an environmental economist. You described my professional sort of accomplishments. I was born in Athens. My first degree was in Athens University, the Department of Economics. Then I did my master's and a PhD degree at the University of Manchester, England. Then I came back to Greece. I spent 24 years doing my military services in the Greek army. In these days, the service was 24 months. Then I started my first job was with the Public Power Corporation. I was an economist and trying to discuss the program of the Power Corporation. So there I learned a lot of stuff about load curves and about different technologies of producing electricity. But these days, the technologies were not renewable. I mean, these days we're talking about, in Greece especially, about lignite. I mean, that was our national treasure these days. Lignite was a national treasure. I mean, it was there, it was cheap. Oil was imported, there was no natural gas, so it was a different type of power system, no interconnections. But it was very interesting because I learned a lot there about working with actual things. Then at some point, I went to the University of Crete. I resigned my position at the Power Corporation. Where I started there, it was interesting. I was the first professor of a new department of economics. So basically, I sort of started my career in my department. It was kind of interesting. I stayed there. I stayed in Crete for almost 20 years. Did everything. I was chairman of the department, dean of the school. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was really interesting because it's like building something from the beginning, building a department from the beginning and hiring people. So I really enjoyed that. At some point, I thought that my sort of circle in Crete was completed. I was not from Crete. I mean, my family, my friends were still in Athens. So when I was asked, I was invited from the Athens University of Economic Business to join them. I joined them, and I finished my academic career in Greece there. At some point, my good friend Eletra Aliardi indicated that if I wanted, I could join the University of Bologna. And these days, the legal framework in Greece allowed me to have a joint affiliation. And at the same time in Italy, so I went to Bologna and I'm still there. I'm very happy. I really enjoy being in Bologna. So that's me, basically. That's my career. Nothing very exciting or extraordinary, I think. I mean, just moving from studies to work and then to university.
Well, it's extraordinary enough in terms of what you have achieved, so no need to downplay that.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
What do you view as the most challenging aspect of being a professor these days?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've been a professor in Greece during the crisis lasted almost 9 years. And then during the second crisis, which is the pandemic. What I think was the most challenging, especially during the financial crisis, the economic crisis in Greece, the unemployment, the loss of jobs and everything, was to motivate the students to follow. Because at some point during the crisis, you see these 18, 19, 20-year-old students that were completely disappointed. I mean, they say, what we're doing here? What we studying? There will be there are no jobs. I mean, we're bankrupt. I mean, we might. So it was. I think the most difficult part of my job these days was not just to go and give a good. Provide a nice lesson in conventional terms, but actually to motivate the kids that it was worth doing that thing. And with the pandemic, not as much with the pandemic, but during the years of the economic crisis, I think that was the biggest challenge. I mean, forget about research, about papers, about that. The idea was that as a professor, you have an obligation to the young generation to teach them something that will be useful for them and for the country. And that was a very challenging part of my job.
Yeah, I see similar problems right now in France as well.
Yeah, it's very, when the kids get involved into this crisis, uncertainty, not know what happened, yeah, it's difficult for them.
Well, let's talk more about your research. What is your favorite article in environmental economics?
Oh, I have lots of them. It will be very hard to distinguish my favorite article. Okay, I would say I will enjoy, but also it helped me in what we're doing a lot. The paper by Dockner and Van Long on international pollution control. It was a very interesting thing about feedback, equilibria, non-linearities and all that. Also, Kathy Segerson paper on non-point source pollution long time ago. It was also, I mean, gave me ideas and helped me understand better certain things than then I also used and published. That was in GIM, and Dr. Avalon was in GIM. But after I started working on this spatial-temporal dynamics, what I really enjoyed, it's Alan Turing's paper on the chemical basis of morphogenesis. It's a paper that has nothing to do with economics, okay? But it's written in a style that we're not used now. I mean, I think that paper was published in early 50s. But if somebody is interested in this kind of analytical approaches, it's a real beauty. I mean, it's a real beauty. So I would say this.
Right, so the first two I'm familiar with, but the third one I'll definitely have to take the reference from you.
Yeah, it's Alan Turing. It's the chemical basis of it's when he proved that if you mix two chemicals, if you mix green and yellow, for example, you don't get something in between, or red and blue, you don't get purple. But if they mix them with a specific speed, you get blobs, you get patterns. So this is how you get morphogenesis, and then biology is discovered by Turing's mechanism. They model the way that leopards or animals get their spots on their skin. So it's a beauty. Yeah. I really like it. Yeah.
Tassos, what book should every environmental economist have read?
I think Baumol notes on the theory of environmental policy, and Dasgupta and Hill on resources.
Yeah, totally agree.
And maybe Colin Clark on bioeconomics. If somebody wants to do renewables.
Let's talk a bit more about yourself. What do you think is your biggest contribution to environmental economics?
Biggest contribution. It's too big, I think. Biggest contribution. Anyway, I think in general that what we all do, unless we're Ken Arrow or Partha Dasgupta or people like that do go in, or Jeff Hill and go and do breakthroughs, our contributions are basically marginal. I cannot see myself. I don't think that I did something really big. I think that what I did, along with people like Art Desu and other colleagues on shallow lakes, Carl-Johan Manel, that started, was kind of important, because it started also some literature after that extend to different things. And I also think that my work with Bas Brock on spatial-temporal dynamics is also has importance. Since then, after that, I see people now trying to introduce space into environmental economics. And there is a group that doing now optimal growth theory in spatial-temporal dynamics. So I think these two parts of my work, there is some contribution there.
Yeah, I grew up with your Shallow Lakes papers. So,
these papers, yeah.
What do you think is the most pressing environmental problem, and how can it be solved?
Well, I don't know how it can be solved. But I think climate change, in combination with inequality, both within countries and both across the globe, is the most important thing. Because climate change generates damages, and these damages are distributed not in an equal way. Poor are getting a lot more damages from climate change than rich or rich nations. So I think that's the big problem. And something that it's long term, it's persistent, we might end up with irreversible impacts. And I think this will affect proportionally more low-income groups and poor countries. I think that's the big problem these days.
So if you then could introduce an environmental policy in the world, what would it be?
I think some kind of help to developing world. All these discussions that we see now about from different COPs meetings, help the developing world and help to build good adaptation programs. Because I think that, okay, one pillar is mitigation, we need to stop emitting, but unfortunately I think that climate change has arrived. Might be expecting climate change in, 20, 30 years from now, but I think climate change arrived a lot faster than we thought. So I think a big and well-designed adaptation program, it's necessary. That's what I would push for.
So that leads me immediately to the next question. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about us being able to tackle the world's environmental problems?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know whether I'm optimistic or pessimistic. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I see the effort and the attempts of big group people to attack climate change, but on the other hand, there are lots of interest groups in terms of nations, lobbies, social groups, and there's lots of conflict there. I mean, we know from economics that there's no win-win situation. I mean, and in terms of introducing these policies, again, there's no win-win. And there will be also these conflicts. I mean, we saw that in the way that the United States sort of dealt with climate change. I mean, we have different types of administrations, back and forth. For some of them, there was no problem. Hopefully, and likely now, with Joe Biden, it seems that the United States are going back into this. So, and probably the picture that we see from the United States in the global problem exists also within countries. I mean, within countries you have this conflict. So, I don't know. It's hard to have some kind of a strong opinion about optimism or pessimism. So I will be a little bit in the middle.
A careful answer. Which environmental economist do you admire the most?
Which environmental economist? I mean, I admire lots of them. I mean, in my list, I mentioned Dasgupta and Hill, okay, and I admire them not just because of the book, but each of them has very, very significant contribution in the field. I mean, Partha Dasgupta just published that big Dasgupta review on biodiversity, and Jeff Hill is writing constantly on very important things. So I would put these two, and also Marty Weitzman, which is not with us, but he also had very important contributions, starting from prices versus quantity to discounting, diversity functions and all that. I mean, yeah, I would stay with these three. I should also mention Karl-Göran Mahler, from his, okay, I don't want to mention Gennaro because Gennaro is Gennaro. But Karl-Göran Mahler put foundations for bringing together ecologists and economists and for providing very significant contributions through that institutions that he created. So, yeah.
Yeah, good choices, yeah. With whom would you like to write your next article?
Well, of course, with Art is you, my good friend and colleague, and I would say with Bas Brock. Actually, with Bas Brock, we're writing an article, so it's okay. It's like, but with these two, they're good friends, good colleagues. We've been working for many years now, very cooperative. So, yeah, I would say these two.
If you could spend 1 hour with a person of your choice, who would it be?
Okay, it's not an environmental economist. I would like to spend an hour with Barack Obama. Okay. Why? Because Barack Obama, after Bush administration and all these stories with Kyoto and everything from the United States, he put back the United States into the environmental agenda, not just in climate change, but EPA policies and everything, and combined with the attitude that he had about social problems and everything, I think it was a very important step forward. It was interrupted by Trump. Now it's coming back with Biden. So I would like to discuss with him how he thought his initial reaction to environmental economics and climate change, what his idea about what damage Trump did to the cause of environmental economics, climate policy, and how now Joe Biden's policy are evolving. I mean, and because I've read some of his books and everything, and I'm really amazed with the clarity that this guy has and the way that he sees things. That's what I would like to get his opinion about what's going on now. Actually, I would have liked to ask him whether he's optimistic or pessimistic about these problems.
You know, you're the, I think, fourth or fifth economist in this series who suggests Barack Obama.
Really?
So he seems to be in very high demand, and as I always say, I hope that when Barack Obama listens to these video interviews, that he will just at some point pick up the phone and give us a call.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, five already. Yeah,
absolutely.
And there's no coordination. I mean,
it doesn't seem like.
No. It's you see, Barack Obama was a very important breakthrough into that. I think it was a breakthrough into the American system, and came on top of a huge crisis because he was elected during the financial crisis, but then tried to put things in some order, and climate came up. I mean, because I've read in his books that when he started talking about climate, his advisors told him put it in the back burner. There's no need now. I mean, we have other things to solve now, more urgent. Let climate go through. But he went forward with these things. So, yeah.
Yeah, an impressive man. Yeah,
it's an impressive man.
Tassos, thank you so much for your time and really inspiring answers. I like them a lot.
Thank you for inviting me to this great idea that you have.
Let me say that I would invite those of you who would like to get more details about Tassos, his research and ideas, to take a look at my Meet Top Environmental Economists interview series, which you can find on my website. So, Tassos, thank you so much for having been here today, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.